The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sackheads Radio. Sackheads Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. It is March the 1st.
Can you imagine?
No, actually.
Where the hell did February go? It left. It's gone. Speaking of leaving, look dead ahead. What do you see?
Nothing.
That's right.
I can tell by the extra amount of room inside the studio that is not being taken up by somebody's certain nostril flaring.
I won't have to cover my forehead as it sweeps over my head.
Yes. There's no ducking.
Wait a minute. Wait, I must be supremely comfortable now being on Sackheads for saying something like that, where last year I would not say that.
And you got out first. That was the best part.
Here's the other thing.
I didn't even dump on him first. It was you.
Yeah, I know. And here's the other thing that I fully expected. I'll speak out of school. I'll shoot myself in the foot. You guys could have taken supreme advantage of me last year in November or December, I think.
Yes.
Because the particular reason why I was out one Wednesday is because I was recovering from a colonoscopy.
And we didn't.
And you guys didn't say a thing about it.
Well, we were concerned, first of all, we're in California. We're very, very concerned about what the elder abuse rules are. So we didn't go down that road yet.
Because I thought, specifically, trust me, I specifically listened to the show. I couldn't listen live because I was CP time. But when I listened again, I thought, okay, it's
They're
coming.
They're going to get me.
It's coming. I know it's coming. It's coming. Up. What? Wait, it didn't happen.
It didn't.
And I thought, this is a target-rich environment, the likes of which you did not take advantage. And so I had two immediate thoughts. Number one, God bless you, thank you very much. And number two, you guys don't love me.
We do have a big footer and a big bulbous nose and a chubby kid. Just so everyone's aware that, listen, I understand my place in life and I understand my thickness and I'm okay with it.
But I fully expected, because I thought, this is too good to pass up, especially when the doctors pulled out the full-pound Russian mallet.
Yes.
That they definitely used.
Oh yeah,
and they say during that, you won't feel a thing. We're going to give you a little drip, and you're kind of going to go out, and then you're going to wakey,
and you'll be fine.
It'll be as if it never happened. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I never went the hell out.
And I talked to you the next day, and it was like talking to somebody who's a victim of like a bait and switch. And you weren't.
I felt betrayed.
You weren't happy about it.
No. I felt betrayed by the doctors, and I felt betrayed by you guys. I felt betrayed by the doctors because, they lied. You're not gonna feel a thing. Bullshit.
Yeah. Yes, you will.
Yes, I did. And the best part, I remembered every damn piece.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Yeah.
That's even worse. So, I'm wondering, and I have to get Miss Melanie to clarify. She's in the chat room at shrmedia.com, and she was saying the month went by, and we didn't celebrate, or there was no Black History Month celebration. And I didn't know if she means as a network, or if in general as a country. Now, we celebrated as a network, and
We had Ken on.
right once at the beginning of the month,
Right.
for like 3.5, 4 minutes.
Right.
That's celebration.
And it was truly wonderful. It was a fabulous celebration.
Right.
Sparklers, cake,
Yeah. No.
fruit punch.
And he couldn't have any of it, obviously, because he's not allowed inside the studio. But we celebrated, and I think that's what's important. The website should have been decorated, she says.
True.
You know, I agree with you. The website should have been decorated, and if I find the guy in charge of it, I will take quick action.
Quick, I'm telling you.
In cutting his pay. I will do that right away. But it is it is now March, which is in like a lion, out like a lamb, as they say. But February kind of went out like a lamb and a lion all at the same time.
Number one, obviously, it was short. It was one of those particular 28-day months.
Right.
And, my God, January 20th, following January 20th, and then the shite load dropped in February. Every day in February, there was something new to talk about. Each more egregious, outrageous, astounding than the next. It just kept coming. And I think that's pretty much how it's going to be the rest of the Trump presidency.
Well, and we're going to go through. I'm going to play the entire. We do oftentimes on the show is we're going to go and play the entire joint session speech, and then stop it and talk about certain portions of it. And just so I know, all of our listeners are smart enough and good enough to be able to watch it themselves. But it's sackheads, so we will beat the dead horse. But yes.
Well, there's nothing like the appropriate commentary. We will provide appropriate commentary, and we will tell you guys how you should think.
Right, and we will do it well. However inappropriate our commentary will most likely be. So, it's funny.
By the way, did you see me tap the box?
Yes.
It worked.
I
Did you notice in the headphones? It worked.
Yes.
Were your headphones buzzing?
No.
Well, like crazy.
Here's why.
That's how you take care of technology,
Yeah, you
damn
just
it.
beat on it.
That's
you just
right.
beat on it until it works. So we're going to get into that speech. We're going to get into it after the first break at 8:30. But I want to talk ahead of time. Here's how I see this going, and maybe I'm wrong. First 30 minutes, I want to talk about the media's reaction to this. Then we'll talk about the speech, and then I want to talk about the Democrats' reaction to it to close out the show. I figured there's plenty to work on there.
Because that dude was from a different planet
Yes.
for one very specific reason.
Which specific? Which dude?
He had no idea who he was.
Which dude?
The guy that provided the former Kentucky governor that was sitting in the little diner with a bunch of old white dudes in flannel shirts because he's got to get back to the people. These are the people because the Democrats are the party of the people. And what did he say? What's one of the first things that came out of his mouth? I'm a Democrat and I'm a Republican. What the fuck?
Well,
You're not a Republican, sir, and that passed by everyone. He said he's
I'm going to do
a
to you.
Republican. What the hell?
I'm going to say to you what I say to Clint. We will get to that.
Holy! All right, sorry, I just bigfooted the shit out of that one too. Damn! Listen, okay, here's Sean reaching across to me.
Yeah, knock it off. Wait, let me see if I can. Hold on. There we go.
Thank you.
That's usually
Deserved.
the media response. Now, I'm just going to put Fox off to the side, obviously, because I want to talk about the liberal media response to this. One of the biggest, I think, the most telling responses in media
Yeah.
was from everybody's favorite communist on CNN, Van Jones.
Yeah. Admitted.
I don't even know. I put on Facebook this morning that somebody needs to get his programming checked, because his speech, his words alone, he became the president tonight. What, Mr. Not My President? What the hell, really?
Yeah, John Lewis can go straight to hell.
I'll tell you exactly what he said, because it's, and this is, for those who don't know Van Jones, he was one of the czars under Obama at one point. He is a self-avowed communist. He's been involved in a whole bunch of different leftist, communist, extreme, politically extreme.
Oh yeah, and
factions.
He'll tell you gladly to your face.
Yeah.
He's a communist.
And Van Jones said this while he was talking to Anderson Cooper over at Sleaze, and then he became president of the United States in that moment. Period. After the president was obviously talking about falling Navy SEAL and having his wife there, and as he was addressing Miss Owens, and if you haven't seen the video and if you haven't heard the audio, it's absolutely immense. But while discussing Chief Petty Officer Ryan Owens, who was killed in Yemen recently, it was a very, very touching moment that really, to me, I think showed you the softer side of Trump and the side that the left doesn't want to acknowledge exists. The fact that he is a compassionate person. And that's one of the biggest things that they've gone after, right? It's just how crude and brash he is about things, and he doesn't care about anybody, and blah, 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 blah.
To me and to you and to people whose jobs it frequently depends on your ability to read people and to understand if you think they're genuine or not. Whenever Obama would address the military or had anything to do with law enforcement, emergency responders, that kind of thing, to me he read false. When I listen and look at Donald Trump and I hear his voice and I watch his mannerisms and I listen to the tone of his speech, I believe that he is truly and genuinely affected positively by being around people who have discipline and the sacrifice necessary to serve the United States. Yes. I think he truly honors the military and law enforcement and emergency responders.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I think a lot of that is he had a front row seat to the 9/11 response. And I'm not saying
that. I think that has a great deal to do with that. For this reason, if I can just go here for a moment.
Yes.
When the Ninth Circuit, before the Ninth Circuit reviewed Trump's travel stays, it went to the particular courts around the United States. The one that went against him was the one in Seattle with that particular judge. The judge in Boston ruled in favor of that because, in my opinion, to that judge, it was more, the problem was more immediate and more present, and he saw the results of the Boston bombing, and Boston is not that far from the New York City 9/11 site.
4-hour drive.
And it was personal to him. To these fucktards on the left coast, they were almost entirely uninvolved, unless for whatever reason they just happened to be there on those particular days.
Right.
It became personal to that judge, and I think it's personal to Donald Trump as well. I'm sure he lost friends and associates and people that knew folks that died in 9/11, perhaps even the Boston bombing.
Right. And I agree wholeheartedly. I think that definitely impacts your view. And, it's really funny to me when you have the people who act like 9/11 was this faraway thing in a galaxy far, far away, blah, 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 blah. And then you have somebody who is front and center, the response is totally different. And I know for me, and I've talked about 9/11 a million times, but I know for me, Northeast folks, Ken, Joe, all of our fellow broadcasters and listeners on the East Coast, we had a front row seat even if we weren't front row. The West Coast wasn't even awake yet, so to speak. I watched the whole thing live, and I think he did too. So I think when he speaks about law enforcement, military, first responders, it is from the heart. And you know what's funny too is you can tell when he's hitting his political points, and you can tell when it's from the heart. Sometimes that's not always received well with him, but the reality is you can tell. And I think in that speech, you could tell when he got to that point, when he was recognizing Chief Petty Officer, or when he was saying to the military and law enforcement later on, his tone, he had a good tone the entire time.
The deputy who worked with me, Danny Oliver.
Yes, his
and Michael Davis, the two law enforcement officers
Yep.
here in Sacramento that were killed that particular day. And Danny Oliver at one time worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
He had their widows in the audience.
Yes.
And he acknowledged them.
By name.
To me, that's highly important.
I think that's what's amazing, is the people that were there that he acknowledged and the tone he had while he took it. During his speech, he had a good tone, but during that, it made it so I think even the most dullard of dullards could see his sincerity in it. But even the left, who was waiting to attack and chomp on everything they possibly could, the left media, it left them nothing. He left them with nothing negative to say about those parts of it. And they have done everything they could today to highlight. You had your partisan lunatics who were trying to highlight the one or two things they disagreed with, and, you know, the ridiculous numbers they've been throwing up, blah, 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 blah. But the reality of the situation is MSN today was mainstream, lamestream liberal media today was mostly quiet about last night's speech because there was not a lot for them to say.
No, there wasn't that much meat on their little scurvy bones.
Well, in their eyes. He said a lot, and I thought he said a lot of good things. Again, not everything I agreed with. But I think he said a lot of good things. But he said it in a way that there wasn't that sound clip that they always hope for. There wasn't that vitriol that they're so used to their side spitting out that they do it. And, you know, I think the response from the joint session and the guests that were there as well was pretty well received.
You knew that there was going to be a terrible moment for what I call the American media maggots and the Democrats when he first enters Congress and there is a 5-minute uninterrupted course of applause. You also know that it's not going well for them when, because of the widow of the slain SEAL, she receives a 2-minute continuous round of applause to which he replies, and he tells her, "You just set a record in here." And what he meant by that is the amount of time that the people present spent applauding her husband. That was a record. And you knew it just wasn't going well. And then, excuse me if I be honest just for a moment, the white-robed Democrat cluckers.
After the break. We're going after the media right now.
All right. Okay. That's number 2. All right, folks, listen up. Here we go. Listen up. Here we go. Damn it, Jim.
But it's soundingly all right. And I've been reading. Social media is different because people on social media, you get in a personal response, whatever. But the lamestream media, by and large, had nothing bad to say. Overall, they kind of nitpicked a few of his words, but that says a lot about how the speech went and how it was delivered and most of the content. You know, they're all harping on one or two sentences, and after when we listen to it, obviously you'll be able to pick out some of the things in those they went after. But it's amazing, and I brought this to you earlier when I brought up Van Jones.
Yeah,
I said,
we were talking about that before the show.
one or two things. they actually get it now, and they actually agree, which I think would be amazing. Or somebody inside lamestream media said, we're losing a shit ton of money with this anti-Trump thing. We have to turn it around a little bit. And start understanding that a vast majority of this country do not agree with them, and they need to start getting on board.
There's a wonderful article.
That's what it comes down to, in my humble opinion.
Well, and to reflect what you just said, there's a wonderful article in Breitbart that just came out, and its headline title is this: Poll, CNN brand continues to plummet. So the only people that are doing this are the persons that are shooting themselves in the foot. It says CNN's brand continues to go in a downward spiral, according to a poll. A YouGov poll shows that CNN falls behind. Listen to this. CNN falls behind MSNBC in brand perception. The Daily Caller repeats. MSNBC? 70 people on any given day are watching MSNBC. Perhaps. And if they're watching it, I don't know, for Shark Tank or something like that. They're not watching it for news, for Christ's sake. The poll asked respondents if you've heard anything about the brand in the last 2 weeks through advertising, news, or word of mouth. Was it positive or negative? Of the three cable networks, Fox News was the only network to score a neutral brand perception. CNN and MSNBC both scored negative on brand perception. But, Sean, who's doing that? They are.
To themselves.
Yes.
That's the best part about it.
These are self-inflicted wounds, thank God.
In the foot. Shooting themselves in the foot constantly. One of the other things, too, that I really found astounding, when I woke up this morning, you know, I get every news alert in the world because I have 15 news programs on my phone. And the first one I opened was CNN. 7 out of 10 people felt that Trump's speech was positive and put the country in a good direction. Pardon me. It was the gist of the article.
Comparatively speaking, that's since January 20th. That's impressive.
But that was one of their headlines. Now, this is a news organization that he could have literally, and I've said this before, he could have saved a kitten from a burning building while doing a CPR on a nun, and all they would say for a news headline is Donald Trump seen leave burning building.
Right.
And insinuate that he somehow lit it on fire. And then buried down on the bottom be like, oh, yeah, saved a kitten in CPR. The fact that that was their lead this morning on their app says to me that they are losing money so bad that they have to start doing something positive towards the president. Month and a half now since he's been installed, sworn in. They have yet to say. Anyone shows me anything from MSNBC and CNN about the president that's been positive, I'll give you $5.
There's some things that are neutral, and I'm not going to showbiz it, but there was a particular person who is a leftist who came through neutral on a particular issue, and I'm sure it killed her to do that.
Yes.
But we'll get to that. But the point is, you seem to be thinking that things will change in the American media maggots. I'm not so sure they have that capacity, just as I am fairly sure the Democrats at this point don't have the capacity. Well, which is why I was so depressed, although there is a chance, that the DNC went with Thomas Perez instead of going with Keith Ellison. And trust me, there are major elements within the Democrat Party and the anarchists that are aligned with it that were in a tizzy, that were very unhappy, chanting, protesting when Keith Ellison was not elected chair of DNC.
Yes.
Though they had 2 ballots because it was so close.
That's
and still,
ridiculous.
Keith Ellison lost.
Well, but that shows you the amount of extremism within the Democratic Party right now. that shows you how divided they are. It shows you that they really, really are only together out of convenience, and it's not for love. It's only together because they need the numbers. They know right now, if they start splitting off into their splinter groups, they don't have the numbers, and it exposes that specific group by and large of what their politics truly are. You brought up anarchists. I also throw into that socialists, communists. You have those particular groups standing on their own out that Debbie Wasserman Schultz horrible curly hair umbrella. And you have them out on their own where they can actually be dissected as an individual group. They are going to be destroyed and lambasted politically and financially because nobody, let me rephrase that, probably about 10% of this country would support them. The other 90 would tell them to go pound sand. And they know that. So they need to fall under that Democrat umbrella because that's their only chance of maybe getting their person into power.
But it still goes back to the election. It still goes back to November 8th, and it still goes back to January 20th. What have the Democrats, or for that matter, the American media maggots, truly learned? And the reason I say that is because I referred to an article from the New York Times yesterday on my show, which specifically said, "Move left, Democrats." That's the editorial page of the New York Times. In other words, the Democratic Party is insufficiently left for the left. And as a solution, as a cogent, logical thinking solution to their problem, they need to move further left, is what this article is saying.
Yes. Well, that makes sense because if you're already on fire, the best thing to do is try to put yourself out with gasoline.
It's just...
But you know what? I welcome that thinking.
Yes, bring it. But this article merely points to they're not getting it. Thank God they're not getting it. But they're not getting it. It is literally the definition of insanity.
Yes, doing the same thing over and over again,
and expecting that miraculous
results
will huzzah from on high come down. And that's
But here's the difference
just
between
not happening.
The media and the political groups. The political groups are just so bought into their own ideology. The media groups, I don't even know if it's necessarily the leftist ideology or against or whatever they deem to be the popular ideology. In other words, like with Obama, they thought it would be cool to back him on everything because he had that cool hip vote and more young people would watch the network. And then because they only poll and sample what they know, which is liberal lunatics, they said, oh, well, everyone hates Trump. It had to be that going into the election because none of them predicted that he was going to win. None of them paid attention to any truths. So then all of a sudden now, they were blown away on election night. Blown away. It was
that was
funniest
one
damn
of my
thing.
all-time
It's the favorite thing
shows. Was being here with you and Clint and monitoring that night. That was one of my favorite all-time radio shows. Just to be here and watch that.
And it wasn't even. It was that he won, but it also wasn't as much as he won as it was they lost.
Well, and the delicious reaction. That you got to witness live. It was grand.
It was like watching the life sucked out of an evil person. Where you just kind of sit there and you're like, I don't even feel bad right now.
Ding dong, the witch is dead.
Yes, but so now this is their first chance with a huge audience. They knew everybody was going to be tuned in for this speech. This was their first chance to kind of start ticking it back the other way, like, hey, look at us. We like the president too. Please watch because we're getting screwed out of money on commercials. I'm really starting to believe that it isn't even about... it is about leftists in some way, shape, or form. They pull the strings over at CNN, MSNBC, sleaze, etc. But I really am starting to think that the ones who are not getting their paycheck the way it should be are like, hey, it's any way the wind blows right now. It's a Queen song in CNN. Mark my words, in the next 2 to 3 months, literally, they can't just jump in all of a sudden like Trump because then they're going to lose everybody, right? But in the next 2 to 3 months, if he keeps being successful,
they cannot afford to have him be
you
successful.
will see them all of a sudden be on the train, so to speak. They will all of a sudden become supportive because that's what's going to sell. Little late in the train whistle.
I know we got a break coming up, but I want to make this one comment.
Do you really know then?
I want to point out what Ralph Chittum's just wrote in chat, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's an excellent point, one of which I was not aware. Ralph wrote, Perez, the new DNC chair, said white people are not entitled to any protections.
We're not.
Under the Voting Rights Act.
We're not.
Voting Rights Act. More identity politics. They have learned nothing. Ralph, you hit it out of the ballpark. They have learned nothing.
Well, of course, Ralph, who is just an amazing on his own show. If you don't listen, you need to. But
I had to point it out because he's right.
But he's 100% right. No, I agree wholeheartedly.
Well,
we are not entitled to any protections under the Voting
One
Rights Act.
sentence before we go. Right out of this article from the New York Times, move left Democrats.
Yep.
The Democratic National Committee will choose its next leader on Saturday. Well, it's already done. And when it does, it should choose a leader who will resist the pressure to pursue the wrong white people. Swear to fucking Christ, that's it right there. They're still writing things and phrasing things in that fashion.
Like we said outside.
It's all identity.
The only thing the left has left
We both agreed
is sex
on
and
this.
race.
Sex and race. That's
Yep,
all
that's
the
the
left
only thing they
has.
have points on right now. We're up against a break. When we come back, we're going to get into the joint session speech. We'll cover it top to bottom, inside and out, up and down, back and forward, black and white, right here on the Sackheads Radio Show, live in the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cop is stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network.
That first half hour went by in about 2.35 seconds.
It's always too quick. Always too quick. So I'm going to kick it off right away. I'm going to get right into the speech. It's unedited, so I apologize now. But
well, that's all right. It makes it real.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
oh, by the way, this part gets a little long.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it went on for about 5 minutes.
It does go on for about 5 minutes, which is funny. It was pretty intense. And I'm just going to let the clapping play off in the background, the applause. But it was also an intense applause. And he worked.
Sometimes you'll watch a particular political event in either the House or the Senate, and there'll be polite golf claps, kind of the stuff that you get at a golf course. And you can tell when it's real, and you can tell when it's just politically driven. This is honest.
Yeah. And you listen to the cheers in the background?
It's cheers. It's applause for a dude wearing a dead orange cat on the top of his head, as I typify him, whose job it is, he said, to drain the swamp and to turn D.C. upside down. And I can't think of a finer place in the entire United States that absolutely must be turned upside down.
Yeah. And that's the funniest part. And one of the things that I noticed when I watched this is the amount of people that were intent on watching him as he worked the room. And he did work the room.
Oh, yes, he did. He knows how.
Oh, yes. The man is... that's one of the things that you can say about him, always positive, is he absolutely knows how to connect with people. You can see his business savviness come through. You can see that he knows how to acknowledge it. And then you add on to that. His sincerity, which I believe there is a lot of. And it really is interesting. Now, in the chat room, as we're listening to this...
Are you gonna read those two things? Because if you would,
First of all, Melanie scolded you.
Made a great comment.
That is his reel here, and you're going to leave Donald alone. And you did.
I think it is his real hair.
First of all, you never said it wasn't, and I'm going to defend you.
No, that's true.
And there's the two bald men in the room, right?
Well, I'm way bald.
I'm not far behind you, pal. As the two bald men in the room, if anything, it's envy, right? It's envy.
And then you're going to read Dave's comment after that?
The Agador says, Mark, I contend the cat is alive and Trump strokes it and gives it treats each night.
I saw that.
And then Ralph...
That was visual. That implanted itself.
Ralph throws in, and this is the only other person who's ever used this word on the show, Except for me when I accidentally misspoke when I was saying Angela Merkel. Oh wait, I did it again. Ralph said it's a misplaced Merkin. If you want to Google that, that's on you.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then, then Ralph's comment. I have to say, it's a lively chat team tonight.
Oh, quite lively.
Quite insightful.
Quite lively.
And listen. The applause is still going on.
Yes.
And it's still honest.
As we joke about Merkins and hairstyles, it is still continuing. And here we go.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
Oh wait, they're not done yet.
Yeah, that was just the introduction.
I would have to recall, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm going to have to recall to see when the last time a president got this response, State of the Union or joint session. Obviously, this can't be a State of the Union because it's his first. But I want to look. I'm sure there are numbers out there for lengths of applause, and I want to see how this adds up to others, both divided House and when you have the majority.
It would be interesting.
Because this is, even I thought it was extreme.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States.
Just that.
Yes.
For the FLOTUS. Because she's taken a lot of undeserved crap.
Of America tonight,
Yes.
as we mark the conclusion of our celebration of Black History Month, we are reminded of our nation's path toward civil rights and the work that still remains to be done. Recent threats Recent threats targeting Jewish community centers and vandalism of Jewish cemeteries, as well as last week's shooting in Kansas City, remind us that while we may be a nation divided on policies, we are a country that stands united in condemning hate and evil in all of its very ugly forms.
Now, I want to stop that right there because I've also been making a little check mark in my head every time he's mentioned something that doesn't get mentioned by a president for the last 8 years. He started off with the threats on the Jewish communities. Over 100 in the last, was it 2 months? There was a report
Yes,
out.
and all the headstones just last week that were turned and vandalized in a Jewish cemetery.
Yes. Over 100 have received terrorist threats in the last couple months, and that's what he's addressing there. And then obviously the man of East Indian descent who was shot and killed in Kansas City horrifically, and it was believed to be racially motivated. So it's a very different going in than we've seen in previous.
Each American generation passes the torch of truth, liberty, and justice in an unbroken chain all the way down to the present. That torch is now in our hands, and we will use it to light up the world. I am here tonight to deliver a message of unity and strength, and it is a message deeply delivered from my heart. A new chapter of American greatness is now beginning. A new national pride is sweeping across our nation, and a new surge of optimism is placing impossible dreams firmly within our grasp.
the national pride, I think, is huge. We came out of 8 years hearing from a president who's talking about how horrible of a country that we are. Not in those specific words, but that was what was constantly intimated. And I want that to be absolutely acknowledged here.
Well,
that's
that's a major delineation between the past 8 years.
Yep.
And just the first darn month.
Yep.
Now.
Yep.
There is, in fact, a new sheriff in town.
And I think that was enormous. And it's the little things in his speech last night that I really thought was making a difference.
What we're witnessing today is the renewal of the American spirit. Our allies will find that America is once again ready to lead.
Our allies, we are ready to lead after 8 years of leading from the back.
Again, let me state the obvious. The number of times that Obama said I, me, as opposed to Trump saying I, me, but mostly we.
Yep. The big difference.
Massive difference.
All the nations of the world, friend or foe, will find that America is strong, America is proud, and America is free. In 9 years, the United States will celebrate the 250th anniversary of our founding. 250 years since the day we declared our independence. It will be one of the great milestones in the history of the world. But what will America look like as we reach our 250th year? What kind of country will we leave for our children? I will not allow the mistakes of recent decades past to define the course of our future. For too long, we've watched our middle class shrink as we've exported our jobs and wealth to foreign countries. We've financed and built one global project after another, but ignored the fates of our children in the inner cities of Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, and so many other places throughout our land. We've defended the borders of other nations while leaving our own borders wide open for anyone to cross and for drugs to pour in at a now unprecedented rate. And we've spent trillions and trillions of dollars.
You did?
Well, we have. He's right. We have spent trillions and trillions of dollars.
Anytime now. Anytime he wants to get caught up.
While our infrastructure at home has so badly crumbled. Then in 2016, the earth shifted beneath our feet. The rebellion started as a quiet protest, spoken by families of all colors and creeds, families who just wanted a fair shot for their children and a fair hearing for their concerns. But then the quiet voices became a loud chorus as thousands of citizens now spoke out together from cities small and large all across our country. Finally, the chorus became an earthquake, and the people turned out by the tens of millions, and they were all united by one very simple but crucial demand, that America must put its own citizens first, because only then can we truly make America great again.
Here's what I liked about that whole part of his speech. He set up all the different reasons why we need to start focusing on our country first. The amount of money we're spending overseas, the suffering in the inner cities for education and violence, as we've talked about in the past, the border and how porous it is, the amount of drugs that are coming over that border and affecting our nation. If you don't know about heroin in the Northeast right now,
it's killing New Hampshire.
It's killing New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Vermont, all over the place. It's absolutely horrific. So he's explaining to all of the dullards, if you will, who think that it's all vitriol.
But I think the finest, most cogent, most stabbing line of his entire speech is coming up. And it's the line that this embodies everything in him to me.
Dying industries will come roaring back to life. Heroic veterans will get the care they so desperately need. Our military will be given the resources its brave warriors so richly deserve. Crumbling infrastructure will be replaced with new roads, bridges, tunnels, airports, and railways gleaming across our very, very beautiful land. Our terrible drug epidemic will slow down and ultimately stop. And our neglected inner cities will see a rebirth of hope, safety, and opportunity. Above all else, we will keep our promises to the American people. Thank you. It's been a little over a month since my inauguration. And I want to take this moment to update the nation on the progress I've made in keeping those promises. Since my election, Ford, Fiat Chrysler, General Motors, Sprint, SoftBank, Lockheed, Intel, Walmart, and many others have announced that they will invest billions and billions of dollars in the United States and will create tens of thousands of new American jobs.
$76 billion plus.
Yes.
He should have mentioned.
Yes.
That's in just, I don't know, what is it, 4 weeks now? In 4 weeks and a couple of weeks prior to his inauguration, Donald Trump has scraped up and cajoled, essentially, $76+ billion out of American businesses to reinvest in the United States, factories, equipment, and labor. That's an astounding accomplishment that no one mentions in the American media maggots, and I defy anyone to point out that Obama somehow scraped up a fraction of that for the entire United States in the past 8 years.
Well, and what we're seeing, what we all knew, is the infrastructure is a big deal. That alone, to me, it's not hard at all to look around this country and realize that our infrastructure is being destroyed.
California is the finest example of putting infrastructure on ignore mode that I can possibly think of. Jerry Brown, the geriatric and Alzheimer's-ridden Jerry Brown, is finally reaping what he began to sow in 1975 and 1976 when he insisted in driving around in his little brown Plymouth Satellite because it saved a few dollars. And the dollars that he saved, he did not infuse back into any form of infrastructure in the state of California. Do you know, Sean? Well, I'm sure you do. We have not built any more roadways or freeways in the state of California. Have we started one electrical generation station in the state of California? No. Have we built any dams? We had the Auburn Dam to build in the 70s. Environmentalists signed off by Jerry Brown said, no, you cannot build that dam. Have we built any more reservoirs? No. Any more dams at all? No. Any water projects? Yes. One water project sending water from Northern California down to Southern California.
The aqueduct.
Yes, that's the only water project.
Because LA was built in the desert.
Yes,
and has no sustainable water of their own.
And we have to support all the illegal immigrants
from the good people of Inyo County.
All the Chireños that are coming in and living in Los Angeles and
certainly not fixing
Central.
any sort of dams. But I digress and move on.
The stock market has gained almost $3 trillion in value since the election on November 8th, a record. We've saved taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars by bringing down the price of fantastic, and it is a fantastic, new F-35 jet fighter. And we'll be saving billions more on contracts all across our government. We have placed a hiring freeze on non-military and non-essential federal workers. We have begun to drain the swamp
Yay!
of government corruption by imposing a 5-year ban on lobbying by executive branch officials and a lifetime ban.
Now, see,
huge. That's huge.
It's huge. But here's the corollary with that. Paul Ryan hates that. And I coined a new term last night in Twitter when I sent a tweet to John McCain. I called him an establish hack, or an establa hack. All the establa hacks, the establishment hacks in D.C. don't like that because it limits their ability to make money. Paul Ryan's excuse for saying that that's bad is that, well, what if he wants to work for some kind of a volunteer group which creates more money for, I don't know, little dying geckos in Afghanistan or something like that.
Well, how about say like the Clinton Foundation?
That's a crappy excuse.
No,
own your ethics.
It's ridiculous that to oppose that. I think anybody in the executive branch, you can use your skills and knowledge much better for this country. My favorite part's coming up next, though.
And a lifetime ban on becoming lobbyists for a foreign government.
Enormous. Enormous.
Yes, you should not.
In any way, shape, or form.
Why should you benefit by lobbying against the United States of America? Because that's essentially what you're doing.
Yes.
You're either with us or against us.
You're putting in the will of the other country, no matter who it is.
No, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's a friendly country, Canada, France. They can both go to hell. America should be first.
Absolutely.
And I'm tired of America, having to tongue the sphincter of all the other countries around the world.
Oh,
it's true.
I'm moving on.
People say that, America is bad. It uses up all the energy for the rest of the world. Well, you fucktards, America also defends all the other countries around the darn planet. All right. Probably didn't want to go there. But I went there anyway.
Here we go.
We have undertaken a historic effort to massively reduce job-crushing regulations, creating a deregulation task force inside of every government agency.
Every single government agency. Every single one. That's huge.
And we're imposing a new rule which mandates that for every one new regulation, 2 old regulations
I love this one too.
be eliminated.
2-for-1 deal.
Oh, hell yes.
I think that's awesome. I think that's such a brilliant way to go about this. I really do.
And when the EPA heard that, they started piddling their pants.
Yep.
That threaten the future and livelihood of our great coal miners.
Shout out to West Virginia and the coal miners.
Yeah, shout out to the reason that King Coal has died. There can be clean coal. No one wants to acknowledge it.
But it's a huge shout out to the coal miners who supported him.
Yes.
We have cleared the way for the construction of the Keystone and Dakota Access pipelines.
Getting energy.
Can you pause it for just a second?
Of course.
Why? Why should the United States of America not be energy dependent? Leftists call it blood diamonds and conflict diamonds.
Yes.
I call it blood oil and conflict oil. Why should we be dependent on other nations through conflict and blood oil
when we don't need to be?
Not just in the Middle East, but in other Southern American countries as well. Why should we not be energy independent when we're sitting on massive massive fields
amounts
of natural gas and our very own petroleum. And then let's be rational. Why are we even talking about the Keystone XL? What a lot of people don't realize is that a good portion of the Keystone XL pipeline has already been built.
Yep.
And all they're doing is wanting to connect what already exists in terms of infrastructure. So why are they taking it down from Alberta through the United States, going south down towards the Chemical Coast? People never ask that question. What's the point of it? Well, Alberta has all the fields in Canada. How you transport oil the most safe is through pipelines, not in cars on trains. That's been proven to be specious. That's not the best idea possible.
Right.
So they're moving it down south through all of these various states, and it's going to end up in what is called the Chemical Coast, towards the Gulf of Mexico and Texas. And it's called the Chemical Coast because, ladies and gentlemen, that's where all the refineries exist.
Tons of them. Yeah.
And then that's also where the tankers can dock, the product can be loaded on board, and then shipped away and exported. Do you know what our number one export is in the United States of America, Sean, people listening in the podcast and in chat? Refined gasoline. And that comes from the Chemical Coast and all the refineries that exist in the Gulf. That's our number one export. So give me a reason, any reason, that this country should not be energy independent, and we can let, finally, all the factards in the Middle East do what they wish to each other as long as they don't export it anyplace else, which is another issue entirely.
Yeah,
Energy independence has to be a goal.
No, I've been saying that from the word go.
Thereby creating tens of thousands of jobs. And I've issued a new directive that new American pipelines be made with American steel.
That's a great idea. I'm not sure we have the factories for it.
Well, and I said this when he was talking about that during the election.
Well, we need to build them.
Right. So in order to do that, we'll need the American steel factories to come back.
Yes.
We have withdrawn the United States from the job-killing Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Another great decision.
Yes.
With the help of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, we have formed a council with our neighbors in Canada to help ensure that women entrepreneurs have access to the networks, markets, and capital they need to start a business and live out their financial dreams.
Why not?
That's a 1-2 punch.
Yes.
For those who say that he's anti-woman, that's a huge thing to throw in.
Right.
Here's the other thing. For all the leftist liberals who absolutely have just been suckling the teat of Justin Trudeau, Trump just threw out that he made a great deal with them.
Yes, he did.
Oh, wait. But,
That's right. He's a negotiator.
Right.
To protect our citizens, I have directed the Department of Justice to form a task force on reducing violent crime. I have further ordered the Departments of Homeland Security and Justice, along with the Department of State and the Director of National Intelligence, to coordinate an aggressive strategy to dismantle the criminal cartels that have spread all across our nation.
Big.
Can you hold it for just a
Yes.
second? There's a particular piece of news that just came out recently of which I don't think everyone is aware, but I'm going to make you aware right now. Under the past DOJ, the GOP now has said that it wants to eliminate what it calls a shadowy DOJ slush fund, which bankrolls leftist groups. And it goes like this under Obama. All the money that was made in suing various groups. That money was taken into DOJ and then through various accounts shipped out under Obama's direction to specifically leftist groups.
Yes.
That's the DOJ under Obama specifically targeting and pointing millions of dollars to leftist groups. That's not the job of government. And the GOP has now said that's got to stop. But that's how corrupt DOJ was.
And now they're actually working on things that they're supposed to be working on. And when he said, a lot of people start getting into the whole, well, he shouldn't be getting in local law enforcement. When he said cartels, he's talking about RICO laws, things like that the federal government actually has authority over, which I want to point out because there are those people who are going to get angry about that. But I digress. And let us move on.
We will stop the drugs from pouring into our country and poisoning our youth, and we will expand treatment for those who have become so badly addicted. At the same time, my administration has answered the pleas of the American people for immigration enforcement and border security.
Huge.
By finally enforcing our immigration laws, we will raise wages, help the unemployed, save billions and billions of dollars, and make our communities safer for everyone. We want all Americans to succeed, but that can't happen in an environment of lawless chaos. We must restore integrity and the rule of law at our borders.
I don't need to beat the dead horse on this, but he's right. Let's move on. It's just easier to say that. He's right. There's no argument there.
Yeah. For that reason, we will soon begin the construction of a great wall along our southern border.
By the way, can you stop it there for just a second?
Go ahead.
There is a company in Mexico that just came out today and said it will provide the concrete for the wall. That's glorious.
Well, it'd be even funnier if they say no.
Hello, President Peña. Guess what? That's called capitalism.
Well, I said this when he was elected. That was my one bit of financial advice. Buy stock in concrete very, very soon. Because if you get the right company, it's going to go through the roof for a few years.
As we speak tonight, we are removing gang members, drug dealers, and criminals that threaten our communities and prey on our very innocent citizens. Bad ones are going out as I speak, and as I've promised throughout the campaign. To any in Congress who do not believe we should enforce our laws, I would ask you this one question. What would you say to the American family that loses their jobs, their income, or their loved one because America refused to uphold its laws and defend its borders?
Brilliant. Brilliantly put.
How can you possibly refute that?
Right.
Really? There is no cogent argument that one can make in opposition to that. Cogent. I said cogent. So there we go. That leaves out Democrats.
But, yeah, how could you absolutely address that and have any other statement?
Our obligation is to serve, protect, and defend the citizens of the United States. We are also taking strong measures to protect our nation from radical Islamic terrorism.
Finally, a president that can say those three words. What the hell? It only took us 8 years.
It wasn't that hard. Look, he didn't even fall down after he said it.
No.
He wasn't struck by lightning, nothing.
No. A comet did not hit anywhere on the planet.
According to data provided by the Department of Justice, the vast majority of individuals convicted of terrorism and terrorism-related offenses since 9/11 came here from outside of our country. We have seen the attacks at home, from Boston to San Bernardino to the Pentagon, and yes, even the World Trade Center. We have seen the attacks in France, in Belgium, in Germany, and all over the world. It is not compassionate, but reckless to allow uncontrolled entry from places where proper vetting cannot occur.
I still don't understand how anyone thinks that's unreasonable.
No, that's insane. One of the smart things that Director Comey actually said is that you cannot vet these people.
Right.
Is there, I mean, come on, for fuck's sake, Democrats and leftists, think about it. Well, they won't. Is there any kind of a computer database in Syria where you can go in and find out just who a Syrian is? No, it doesn't exist. There's a particular individual named, he's a lieutenant colonel, Masdi Jasser, Jasser. And he says, you don't need a database. All you need is someone who is a Muslim to sit down one-on-one and interview all of these people and pose questions such as this. Do you support Sharia law?
Right.
Do you support American law?
Right.
Are you a Sunni? Are you a Shia? What do you think of me holding up this photograph or this documentation, this depiction of Muhammad? And he says, those are 4 base questions that you can use to fundamentally vet everyone attempting to come into the United States who is a Muslim.
Well, and you're also, it's like trying to vet a beach, right? Trying to find that one specific grain in a beach. There's no documentation. There's no tracing.
There's no database.
There's no database.
It
There's
doesn't
no
exist.
anything. So how can you say who is and who isn't the bad guy when you don't know anything about these people one way or the other?
No.
Whereas most other countries have a criminal justice system that actually tracks. You can actually have some sort of intelligent info.
ISIS has already said.
We're going to run out of time.
ISIS has already said it has insinuated any number of serious elements throughout all of the European Union. And I can tell you, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school when I tell you that I've had sources that have told me outright that there are already ISIS elements here in the United States of America.
Of course there is, but we've known that.
Yes, but no one wants to admit it, and no one wants to say, well, how do we combat that? By using common sense. Damn me for saying that.
Well, once you brought in the common sense thing, it goes right out the window.
Those given the high honor of admission to the United States should support this country and love its people and its values. We cannot allow a beachhead of terrorism to form inside America. We cannot allow our nation to become a sanctuary for extremists. That is why my administration has been working on improved vetting procedures, and we will shortly take new steps to keep our nation safe and to keep those out who will do us harm.
What's the problem with trying to stop people from hurting us? I don't understand anyone's argument in this.
It's an argument that you cannot make unless you have a specific mindset that values
you have a goal,
political correctness over all,
or you want to actually be the ones hurting us. You have a goal. That's the only way.
As promised, I directed the Department of Defense to develop a plan to demolish and destroy ISIS, a network of lawless savages that have slaughtered Muslims and Christians and men and women and children of all faiths and all beliefs. We will work with our allies, including our friends and allies in the Muslim world, to extinguish this vile enemy from our planet.
Plain and simple.
No, and it doesn't need to be complicated.
It's so weird to think what the last administration was saying about this and this one.
I have also imposed new sanctions on entities and individuals who support Iran's ballistic missile program and reaffirmed our unbreakable alliance with the State of Israel.
Two huge things.
And that kills, that grates in the craw of every DC leftist and anarchist that we have publicly stated that we align ourselves with Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah. How dare we take care of the country that we've been tight with?
How dare we take care of the country that is surrounded by every side except the ocean by its literal enemy.
People that want to kill him.
Who can on any given day throw missiles and rain missiles and RPGs down on Israeli citizens at will.
Yep, absolutely.
Finally, I have kept my promise to appoint a justice to the United States Supreme Court from my list of 20 judges who will defend our Constitution.
What a shock that is.
Yeah.
Defending the Constitution.
What? Sean, that's the thing. And everybody listening in chat, where the hell have we come and how did we get here as a country when to say something as obvious as I defend the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights has placed people like myself, for example, under Janet Napolitano, I was quantified as a terrorist.
Yes.
Because I was a local domestic terrorist, because I believe in the U.S. Constitution. I make no bones about it. I am an oath keeper. I signed up for an oath keeper because I'm a sheepdog. I was in law enforcement. I had the sheepdog mentality, and I have it now if you ever would be so silly as to brace me on anything when I'm carrying one day. That would be bad for you. But I was called a terrorist in my own country because I believed in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I caulk off at this because I watched and I saw documents written by the U.S. government that said that I had those beliefs. I was a domestic terrorist under Janet Napolitano's regime. My federal government, that federal government, hated me.
Yes.
How did we get here as a country like that?
Because we as citizenry allowed it. Not necessarily me and you, but in general.
I am greatly honored to have Maureen Scalia with us in the gallery tonight.
That was great.
Amazing.
And did you see all the members of the Supreme Court stood and applauded
Absolutely.
for her? That's
Absolutely.
never happened before.
Amazing.
Thank you, Maureen. Her late great husband, Antonin Scalia, will forever be a symbol of American justice. To fill his seat, we have chosen Judge Neil Gorsuch, a man of incredible skill and deep devotion to the law. He was confirmed unanimously by the Court of Appeals, and I am asking the Senate to swiftly approve his nomination. Tonight, as I outline the next steps we must take as a country, we must honestly acknowledge the circumstances we inherited. 94 million Americans are out of the labor force. Over 43 million people are now living in poverty, and over 43 million Americans are on food stamps. More than 1 in 5 people in their prime working years are not working. We have the worst financial recovery in 65 years. In the last 8 years, the past administration has put on more new debt than nearly all of the other presidents combined. We've lost more than 1/4 of our manufacturing jobs since NAFTA was approved, and we've lost 60,000 factories since China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001. Our trade deficit in goods with the world last year was nearly $800 billion. And overseas, we have inherited a series of tragic foreign policy disasters. Solving these and so many other pressing problems will require us to work past the differences of party. It will require us to tap into the American spirit that has overcome every challenge throughout our long and storied history. But to accomplish our goals at home and abroad, we must restart the engine of the American economy, making it easier for companies to do business in the United States and much, much harder for companies to leave our country.
I don't think you need to make it harder for businesses to leave. All you have to do is make it more attractive.
Right, make them want to stay.
All you have to do is reduce it down to a reasonable tax level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the United States has the highest business tax rate in the entire planet. Why? That's unnecessary.
You make it so they don't want to go.
We're strapping ourselves down, hurting ourselves. That makes no sense.
It's amazing how we as a nation, or at least the left in this country, is all about strapping ourselves down and making our lives harder and making less money.
European countries don't want to do business in this nation because of regulations and the onerous laws under which they have to operate. They fear our lawyers. The lawyers know that they exist to go after corporations. We're not attracting European businesses, and they have quite stated so in those precise terms.
Yep. It's plain and simple.
Right now, American companies are taxed at one of the highest rates anywhere in the world.
Bingo.
My economic team is developing historic tax reform that will reduce the tax rate on our companies so they can compete and thrive anywhere and with anyone. It will be a big, big cut. At the same time, we will provide massive tax relief for the middle class. We must create a level playing field for American companies, and our workers have to do it. Currently, when we ship products out of America, many other countries make us pay very high tariffs and taxes. But when foreign companies ship their products into America, we charge them nothing or almost nothing. I just met with officials and workers from a great American company, Harley-Davidson. In fact, they proudly displayed 5 of their magnificent motorcycles made in the USA on the front lawn of the White House. And they wanted me to ride one, and I said, no, thank you. I asked them, how are you doing? How is business? They said that it's good. I asked them further, how are you doing with other countries, mainly international sales? They told me without even complaining, because they have been so mistreated for so long that they've become used to it, that it's very hard to do business with other countries because they tax our goods at such a high rate. They said that in the case of another country, they tax their motorcycles at 100%. They weren't even asking for a change, but I am. I believe.
Wow.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's like you don't want American products, period.
And I say it all the time. You notice how in this country we drive cars that now they're made over here, but were made in Japan, all these. But you don't see a lot of American cars overseas except for the Middle East.
You see some in China. Buick actually sells fairly well in China, but Buick has a plant in China.
Right.
Because the Chinese said it must be so.
Right. Because they liked it, so it was okay.
I believe strongly in free trade, but it also has to be fair trade. It's been a long time since we had fair trade. The first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, warned that the abandonment of the protective policy by the American government will produce want and ruin among our people. Lincoln was right, and it's time we heeded his advice and his words. I am not going to let America and its great companies and workers be taken advantage of us any longer. They have taken advantage of our country no longer.
And the leftists are okay with it because we should pay our fair share.
And again, how can you disagree with that?
I don't.
That's just Pat Dollard and I, when I was speaking to him yesterday, we both almost simultaneously at one point while discussing a situation revolving leftists, we both said that's insanity.
Yeah.
Writ large, I can conjure no other explanation than that. It doesn't make sense.
It's just ridiculous.
Jobs. Protecting our workers also means reforming our system of legal immigration. The current outdated system depresses wages for our poorest workers and puts great pressure on taxpayers. Nations around the world, like Canada, Australia, and many others, have a merit-based immigration system. It's a basic principle that those seeking to enter a country ought to be able to support themselves financially. Yet in America, we do not enforce this rule, straining the very public resources that our poorest citizens rely upon. According to the National Academy of Sciences, our current immigration system costs American taxpayers many billions of dollars a year. Switching away from this current system of lower-skilled immigration and instead adopting a merit-based system, we will have so many more benefits. It will save countless dollars, raise workers' wages, and help struggling families, including immigrant families, enter the middle class. And they will do it quickly, and they will be very, very happy indeed.
Wait. So you mean that when people come here from other countries legally, they should have to be able to take care of themselves and not just go onto some sort of social program?
I don't know what it is with Canada now, but when I went up to Canada in the late 90s, early 2000s, Chinese immigrants that were coming into Canada had to have $10,000 in fungible assets before they could stay in Canada. That's Canada, the leftist idealist bastion of North America. Can you imagine what would happen if the United States said anyone wishing to stay into the United States must bring proceeds with them and show that they have the equivalent of $10,000 in assets in an American equivalent of dollars? They'd go off the rocker. They'd become completely even more unhinged than they are now.
Yeah, absolutely out of control.
But it's fine for Canada.
Blame Canada.
I believe that real and positive immigration reform is possible as long as we focus on the following goals: to improve jobs and wages for Americans, to strengthen our nation's security, and to restore respect for our laws. If we are guided by the well-being of American citizens, then I believe Republicans and Democrats can work together to achieve an outcome that has eluded our country for decades. Another Republican president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, initiated the last truly great national infrastructure program, the building of the interstate highway system. The time has come for a new program of national rebuilding.
Wait, you mean Eisenhower was the president, so we probably haven't had good 50 years? 55?
Right. Well, again, in California, not only has California put building roadways just on ignore mode, but under Brown, both times in his governorship, he has stated, we will build no further roadways. That's a statement from him.
Well, God forbid we went somewhere.
Yeah, I know, in a car of our own free will.
America has spent approximately $6 trillion in the Middle East. All the while, our infrastructure at home is crumbling. With this $6 trillion, we could have rebuilt our country twice, and maybe even 3 times if we had people who had the ability to negotiate.
Just a little diggy-wiggy there.
Oops.
To launch our national rebuilding, I will be asking Congress to approve legislation that produces a $1 trillion investment in infrastructure of the United States, financed through both public and private capital, creating millions of new jobs.
You mean those shovel-ready jobs that never came to fruition about 8 years ago?
Right. Promised by Barack Hussein Obama.
But it never happened. This is the clapping I get when I walk in here every single night, by the way.
Right. Guided by 2 core principles: buy American and hire American.
What? That's racist.
Tonight, I am also calling on this Congress to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Yay!
Yeah, Melanie in chat, you're absolutely correct about shovel ready.
With reforms that expand choice, increase access, lower costs, and at the same time provide better health care. Mandating every American to buy government-approved health insurance was never the right solution for our country. The way to make health insurance available to everyone is to lower the cost of health insurance, and that is what we are going to do. Obamacare premiums nationwide have increased by double and triple digits. As an example, Arizona went up 116% last year alone.
Wait, how?
The governor of Kentucky just said Obamacare is failing in his state, the state of Kentucky, and it's unsustainable and collapsing. 1/3 of the counties have only one insurer, and they're losing them fast. They are losing them so fast. They're leaving. And many Americans have no choice at all. There's no choice left. Remember, when you were told that you could keep your doctor and keep your plan, we now know that all of those promises have been totally broken. Obamacare is collapsing, and we must act decisively to protect all Americans. Action is not a choice, it is a necessity. So I am calling on all Democrats and Republicans in Congress to work with us to save Americans from this imploding Obamacare disaster. Here are the principles that should guide Congress as we move to create a better health care system for all Americans. First, we should ensure that Americans with pre-existing conditions have access to coverage and that we have a stable transition for Americans currently enrolled in the health care exchanges. Secondly, we should help Americans purchase their own coverage through the use of tax credits and expanded health savings accounts. But it must be the plan they want, not the plan forced on them by our government.
Wait, you mean so they actually have like a free market choice type thing? That's bizarre.
Oh, no. Can't add that.
Thirdly, we should give our state governors the resources and flexibility they need with Medicaid to make sure no one is left out.
And this is the biggest one to me.
Fourth, we should implement legal reforms that protect patients.
Not this one.
From unnecessary costs that drive up the price of insurance.
And litigation.
Bring down the artificially high price of drugs and bring them down immediately.
Can you stop it just for a second?
Yep.
There you go. 2 words that would turn the tort industry, and it is an industry, and lawyers upside down.
Yes.
2 words. Loser pays.
Yep.
If we were to institute that, it would have what attorneys call a chilling effect on suits in the future. When you lose, if it looks like lawyers will take anything. Sorry, White Mamba. I apologize to you right now. But because of the nature of the attorney class in the United States, they'll take anything, and anyone can be sued for anything. That's not a shock. But if you lose and you have a specious suit that you brought simply because you thought it was going to win, if you lose, you should pay. 2 words. Loser pays.
Well, and I have said this time and again, if you make an accusation against somebody, and this is usually like a workplace type thing, and it's found to be false in a lawsuit, say you sue that boss for X, Y, and Z harassment,
right,
whatever, then the amount that you were seeking should be what you're paying. Because the amount of damage that you've done to that person, if you've lost legitimately, cannot be undone by just going away.
Well, let me show you. Let me give you another reason. How about Darren Wilson?
Yes, prime example, Darren Wilson.
That man did nothing wrong. He was vetted by literally 100 FBI agents in Ferguson. Then he went to court. Then he was found not guilty. There was nothing of which he was guilty. That man became a pariah in all of Ferguson, in all of the Midwest. He can no longer get a job
anywhere.
You know, and the hands up, don't shoot meme was an outright lie.
Yep.
But because of it, and the following Black Lives Matter, that man can never get a job other than, I don't know, pushing the cheeseburger icon at McDonald's anymore.
Life destroyed over an outright
Over
lie.
a falsehood.
Yep.
And finally, the time has come to give Americans the freedom to purchase health insurance across state lines.
The biggest,
the
biggest change.
Why not make it portable?
This, to me, is absolutely insane that it hasn't been done to this point. The leftists, this is why Obamacare has state to state exchanges versus just a general exchange, because they don't want it across state lines, because these Democrats, when they were developing Obamacare, getting the kickbacks, the prices would plummet, not only for insurance,
yes,
but for the cost of medical in general.
Yes, there are two excellent examples of that. When there is competition, prices go down. That's how capitalism works.
Yep.
For example, the corollary to that is, why have student tuition skyrocketed? Absolutely skyrocketed. And the people that are sitting on the various boards in the California, well, not just California, across the nation, colleges and universities are making bank.
Yep.
All these administrators are making bank. Why is that? Because the federal government picks up the loans, took over the loans for the kids, and all of these colleges and universities know that the federal government will pay up, that there is no more competition.
Right.
There, so why the hell should they compete?
Right. There's no competition for a monopoly.
So then you've got a kid who comes out with a degree in philosophy, like my little nephew.
Underwater basket weaving.
Yes. And now he's a barista and pulls the lever that makes machines go. That's what his college degree got him. And a $75,000 tab that my brother paid off for my other brother. $75,000 for nothing, because there was no competition.
Exactly.
Which will create a truly competitive national marketplace that will bring costs way down and provide far better care. So important. Everything that is broken in our country can be fixed. Every problem can be solved. And every hurting family can find healing and hope. Our citizens deserve this, and so much more. So why not join forces and finally get the job done and get it done right? On this and so many other things, Democrats and Republicans should get together and unite for the good of our country and for the good of the American people. My administration wants to work with members of both parties to make child care accessible and affordable, to help ensure new parents that they have paid family leave. To invest in women's health and to promote clean air and clean water and to rebuild our military and our infrastructure. True love for our people requires us to find common ground, to advance the common good, and to cooperate on behalf of every American child who deserves a much brighter future. An incredible young woman is with us this evening who should serve as an inspiration to us all. Today
This was cool.
is Rare Disease Day.
Yes, very cool.
Joining us in the gallery is a rare disease survivor, Megan Crowley. Megan Megan was diagnosed with Pompe disease, a rare and serious illness, when she was 15 months old. She was not expected to live past 5. On receiving this news, Megan's dad, John, fought with everything he had to save the life of his precious child. He founded a company to look for a cure and helped develop the drug that saved Megan's life. Today, she is 20 years old and a sophomore at Notre Dame.
Okay.
That's an American story. I mean, if you want an American story, there's one right there.
I feel like the world's most useless father sometimes. Because no matter what, I don't think I would have the wherewithal for that.
Yeah, you haven't discovered wild medical solutions.
God bless the man. I think it's absolutely astounding. Both of them, really. But holy cow. Not only, I wouldn't even be able to understand what the problem was, never mind get involved in a solution for it. The man's an overachiever, and I'm proud of him. And listen, if you look at the time and how much time's left in the speech, we're not going to be able to get to the end. We get 23 minutes on the speech and 14. So we will get through as much as we can, but just be advised. Yeah, man, what a... you want to talk about... You know how you see people with the world's best dad mug?
Yeah.
And you're like, come on, are you really? Or did somebody just buy you? No!
No, that guy is the world's best dad. I would concede that from the word go.
Me too. God bless him.
Did we come through what I considered to be Trump's finest sentence? I don't remember hearing
Not
it.
yet.
Are you going to play it, or are we stopping for now?
I think we're going to be able to get to it.
Okay, all right. Then I won't Bigfoot that.
Megan's story is about the unbounded power of a father's love for a daughter. But our slow and burdensome approval process at the Food and Drug Administration keeps too many advances, like the one that saved Megan's life, from reaching those in need. If we slash the restraints, not just at the FDA, but across our government, then we will be blessed with far more miracles, just like Megan. In fact, our children will grow up in a nation of miracles. But to achieve this future, we must enrich the mind and the souls of every American child. Education is the civil rights issue of our time.
I do agree with that statement to a point. The value and how it affects our nation is kind of how I look at that. I do feel that the education in this country is completely shoestringed by so much, including the Department of Education. Not enough is left on a local level, and certainly not enough is encouraged to go to non-government run schools. I think the lack of education options for poor performance schools needs to be adjusted. I don't... And I had this conversation.
The NEA is going to fight that tooth and nail.
I had this conversation the other day where somebody said, if all of a sudden you allow people to go to the school that they want, you can have everybody go to the good school. And I said, that's the fucking problem. You have some schools where some are good and some are horrific. And that's the problem. How can they be teaching the same thing if that is the standard? You're going to get into public education. I say this anytime the government gets involved in shit, you have to meet a standard. If you walked into, pick a business, and you go to this one and it's great, and you go to that one, it's lousy. People complain, right? It's an issue, and they have to fix it, right? If it's a chain. Same thing with schools. And I'm seeing
not if they're supported. Not if that's not an issue.
I'm seeing this firsthand coming from a really good school and transferring a 6-year-old into a subpar school, in my opinion.
Well, that's sad on your part.
It had to. But
Now, was that because of location?
Yep.
Because
and
of
that's all
districts?
all it's strictly based on is location. And that's the problem. And we can get into why schools suck, and I'll be the first one to tell you, it's teachers and unions. Teachers and unions.
Well, yes.
They do, under the guise of we're doing this for the children, they will make all, and I can't tell any more about what I know about a specific teacher and union agreement that's going on right now. However,
I throw that mostly at the feet of the, if I hear anyone quantified as an educator, air quotes, I know they're a leftist fucktard. Because I know the environment in which teachers have to operate these days is an oppressive environment. They cannot get the attention of the kids. There's so much political correctness going on in the schools and in the classrooms. How teachers, if you could take the manacles off teachers, I honestly believe that the bulk of them could get through to the children.
well, and you also have to have teachers that want to be there and not just vested, so that you can't get rid of them. And you know the difference in the teachers. And I'm not saying every teacher out there is horrible, just like I'm not saying every teacher out there is great, because they're not. But you have one teacher, and I use my son's former teacher and the one at the beginning of this year as an example. Unbelievable, both of them were. They came from a school where the culture within the school was great. The administration was great. And the education value was immense. Education was key. It was important. Both of them set a tone, which I thought was pretty amazing of, I'm not your friend, I'm your teacher. And I was impressed with that, because you don't see it a lot.
No,
you,
but
you
that's
see
what
that
needs to be.
trickle in to what's happening with parenting too, right? You have all these parents trying
And
to
they
make
all
their
want to
kids
be
friends.
friends, right.
Same thing happened with teachers. And now when you see that lack of experience, and I see it in contrast to what I get now, it's immense. It is immense. And you hear what the student talks they did that day, and you're like, well, why the hell do you have to go? I'll tell you why you have to go, because if you don't go the amount of days that's required, you get a call from the school or a visit from the truants here in California, you could be prosecuted for not sending your child. Well, if they're not learning anything, then why am I sending them 5 days a week when I could maybe keep them home 2 days a week?
Yeah, but that...
And here's the other thing. If they don't have the attendance, they don't get the funding.
Boom, boom.
So
you just got into my head.
You have a state law forcing you to send a kid 5 days a week to a class that's doing nothing.
Yes.
And if you don't do it, you can get prosecuted in order for them to save their money and pay the teachers.
Because it's all about money.
And I'll tell you right now, in the Northern California area, there's a negotiation going on between a union and a school district where the union is demanding money, and you're either going to have to cut some sort of classes or students. And the union is saying, but that's on you, which one, not students' activities, but that's on you and which one you want to cut. And how about you just don't demand a raise this year and nobody has to suffer? No, it's for the students. And you see this all over the world, all over the country, rather.
Yeah, it's for the children.
But you go to a lot of the private schools, God, what's the school system called now? Not school system, but the types of schools they are. The non-public funded schools, where it's non-union teachers and it's merit-based. But those schools are the charter schools, thank you. Those schools are actually performing better because you have educators that want to be there, not necessarily to demand higher funding, but they want to be there to educate. You have students that want to be there, or their parents want them to be there because the education is higher. Everybody is there for the common goal, the education of that student, versus a retirement plan per se. Now, do I think teachers should be compensated appropriately? Like any other profession, yes. But do I think that they should ever be holding students hostage for a raise or to prove their union points? No. And I think that if you ever strike as a teacher, and I think if your union develops to strike as a teacher, I think you should all be fucking fired.
You make an important point about education in in no other way than the amount of time that you took on this discussion. For at least 5 minutes, you went on about education.
Yes.
Why? Because you're a parent.
Yes.
And you have a child.
And I hate unions.
And you're invested in the education of your children. If it's that important to you, you're a parent, it's equally important to all the rest of the parents out there who actually care about their children, which is why Betsy DeVos was opposed. She favors charter schools, independent schools, private schools, and supports basically having tests.
Well, and I think that
for teachers.
If you choose to not use public schools, then you should get that education to go towards that tax credit or that funds back to go towards private schools.
Yes, and here's why they won't do that, because they know the overall quality of public schools has been brought down by themselves, and they fully realize that if people were given the freedom to choose, they would not choose public schools,
ever.
And therefore the leftists would lose the ability to corral the necks of children and indoctrinate them. For example, here's another allegory, so to speak. What if you were given the ability to choose your own cable channels? You could do away with all the extraneous bullshit that you don't listen to. And what
like MSNBC.
And what would be the result? All the rest of those channels that weren't watched would go away, and people know it. So they're using the money that you pay in a bill, just like education, to support all the extraneous channels, like the Little White Kids channel, and the Turtle channel, and the channel for
the
leaning
Barking
over
Dog
left.
channel.
And
there's a goddamn channel for your dog.
Yes, and the 24-hour Tibetan bell ringing channel. All those channels that don't mean shite to anybody but a small little teeny weeny group. And it's the truth with education as well.
Yep.
If you give people the chance to opt out of a public school because they're crap, they will, and they live in constant fear of that occurring.
Well, and that's part of the huge issue for me. And listen, I think that the standard or the amount of decision making as a parent that's removed from you with the way our public education system, where your child can go, what they'll learn, etc., is absolutely ridiculous. There's no input from parents allowed. And then you look
because
at
you don't know crap. You're
you
not
look
educated.
at Common Core. And there's and I know we only have 2 minutes left. There's a school in Texas, and one of my Facebook friends posted this, and if you're in the chat room now, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, who has expanded, it was Valerie from Freedom Fest, expanded recesses in their schools. And what had happened is their scores started to rise. All these different things, we can argue as to why. De-stress, getting the kids to relax through offsetting energy. But the simple fact is there's so much harping on classroom work now that they don't allow them to be kids. They don't develop socially appropriately, not inappropriately. They don't learn how to win and lose through the games that you and I grew up with, Tag, Duck, Duck, Goose, Red Rover, all those that you played on the playground.
You better not throw a ball at a kid anymore.
Yep, and all because there is this ridiculous approach to education. I will tell you right now, my 6-year-old brings home 10 pages of homework, double-sided, for the month.
But don't you ask yourself that question? This question, is that done because the work that should be accomplished
is not being done in the school,
is not getting done in the school time allotted because the teachers are told that all this other extraneous bullshit has to be taught, so the actual teaching then of certain subjects occurs at home because they don't have any other place to do it, for God's sake?
They spend more time arguing as to whether or not it's called crisscross applesauce. It's Indian style, for God's sakes. Stop teaching them bullshit. They're sitting Indian style, and there's nothing wrong with it. Sorry, that was a conversation we had recently with my 6-year-old. It's an Indian style. And he looked at me.
as a
I'm
parent,
like,
how do you explain all this stuff to kids?
oh, it's hard.
How do you
I'll
do
tell you.
that?
I'll tell you right now. I knew my biggest problem in the new classroom came when, after Trump was elected, my son said the words to me, "I'm sad that Trump was elected." And I said, "Why?" And I know we only have 30 seconds. He said, "Because all of my friends are going to have to leave and go back to Mexico."
That's sad on not just 2 levels, but even more levels.
6 years old. This is the stuff that's being allowed to be discussed in the classroom.
Yeah.
I kid you not, right hand to God, that was said in my truck, and then I had to sit there and explain the entire thing. I didn't want to. Why at 6 should he even care what's going on like that right now?
Why
And
put the weight of the
I then
world
had
on a
to address it.
6-year-old?
And that's what they do. They try to turn them from being children into adults at too young of an age.
God, that's sad.
10 pages double-sided homework for a 6-year-old. You think that's okay? I highly doubt it. Folks, this has been the Sackheads Radio Show. I apologize for not getting through the full speech. That's just the way it goes when you have 2 windbags. Imagine if we have the third.
-1.
Yeah, we'll be back next Wednesday evening. Make sure you're checking out all the great shows on the SHR Media Network. Starts off bright and early tomorrow morning with Pastor Shannon and Mike.
And don't forget the Berserk Bobcat Saloon tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, with myself and Carrie Baxter Donovan talking about CPAC and any other
KBD.
shite that happens to enter our brainulus.
We appreciate you sticking around with us. We did as much as we could this week, but unfortunately, time just runs on this show. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next Wednesday evening. Stick around. There's more crap coming up right after. And I mean that in a good way. I really do. Only because I know who's posting right now.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Dude. Dude.
Radio.
Dude. Dude.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.